Here's a story that took place about 2 years ago when I was a famous plastic surgeon at a prestigious hospital in Gangnam. I myself didn't pay much attention to my reputation, as I was more into caring about the artificial beauty that I could bring to my customers. Never had I thought of myself to be able to perform plastic surgery on a dead person until I encountered this monstrous situation. That day, the director of orthopedic surgery asked me to replace him on one of his night shifts, as he had to settle some family affairs. Having worked all day, I was no longer in the mood to be on duty that night. My head was dizzy, I was tired and stressed, but I just felt compelled and obligated to help him out. It was now around midnight and I was exhausted. I tried to get back to my room to take a short rest after a long day of surgery. I slowly took off my shirt, yawning and sighing, sleepy, when I suddenly heard an echoing sound, loud, and then it went completely quiet. I thought that maybe it was because I was too tired, that I began to imagine things, or just simply misheard it. As I was about to go to bed, I heard that sound again. I curiously went to the door to see what it was. There was not a single person in sight. The whole corridor was mostly dim, as the light was only shining in a small place. I began feeling worried, as the dark, cold air made me feel like I was in a morgue. Suddenly, I saw a glimpse of a figure standing at the end of the hallway. She stood there for a while without moving, and the clothes she wore looked like a patient's, so I kept wondering what she was doing there. I heard her call out my name. Doctor, hey, Jin, please follow me. I looked at her confusingly, not understanding what to do or say. This was awkward, and suddenly an invisible hand pulled me towards her. I was so filled with horror that I was completely paralyzed and couldn't even scream out. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't control my actions. I finally stopped in front of the computer engineering room, and when I entered, the door unexpectedly slammed shut and startled me. There was that woman still standing in front of me, not saying a word. A stream of consciousness began filling my mind, making me tremble and break into a cold sweat. My legs were no longer able to stand on their own. I had to lean against a nearby chair or wall. And the scene that followed after that proved that my thinking was absolutely correct. She suddenly burst into tears. Her cry resounded frighteningly, giving me goosebumps all over. And then she stared at me. My face was completely pale, as there was no blood left in it. My limbs were exhausted, and I couldn't feel any life in them. Even though I tried to scream, I could not make a single sound. All of a sudden, the computer screen automatically turned on, continuously changing page to page, as if it was being controlled by some spirit that I couldn't see. But then it stopped. A list of hospital clients appeared on the screen, with a line of text colored in red. It was the name of a client that I had performed plastic surgery on about 2 months ago. I've never seen her again. I glanced fearfully at the female ghost, and then she suddenly lifted her hair and looked at me as if she were pleading for help. Seeing her crushed, bloody face, eyes popping out, made me so scared, terrified, that I didn't even dare to look at her any longer. Maybe she was going to turn me into some statue or something. She suddenly whispered, "Please help me to have a beautiful face." This didn't make any sense. She was a ghost. After a while, I understood what she wanted, although I didn't want to. I reluctantly accepted her offer to help. The next day, I returned home and went to the morgue she had told me about before. It was explained to me by the morgue manager that she had died 2 days ago due to a serious traffic accident. Her entire face was completely deformed, and she could not be identified. Thinking only of her wishes, I agreed to do that, but I was really afraid. After completing the procedure, I quickly took her body to the hospital. Faced with a corpse that was both terrifyingly disgusting and filled with stench, deeply worried me. I also had to deal with the after effects from the hospital. I knew they were going to put an enormous amount of pressure on me. Maybe I wasn't fit in their eyes to continue working. Anyway, I was very worried. But thanks to my determination, my skills and experience made for a successful surgery and the most beautiful corpse I'd ever seen. I began to patch up the crushed flesh on her face, adding some silicone, injecting some filler, and eventually getting her face looking as natural and harmonious as possible. Though it looked a bit scary, I subtly used makeup to conceal her flaws. Looking at the finished production, or looking at the finished product in front of me, I shivered in fear again. But I was also happy to have been able to fulfill a dying girl's wish. In my opinion, every woman, alive or dead, wants to be beautiful. I just hope I never run into another ghost again.